Racist cop mocks old black woman, then finds out she's undercover FBI agent. The contemptuous smile froze on the officer's face when the elderly black woman she had humiliated for weeks opened her worn purse and, instead of the medication everyone expected, pulled out a gleaming FBI badge and said in a firm voice, "Officer Kelly Dawson, you are under arrest for corruption and complicity in human trafficking. Stick around until the end, and don't forget to subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from." In a police station in downtown Baltimore, Maryland, the air conditioning struggled against the suffocating July heat. Beatrice Johnson walked slowly down the hallway, leaning on her polished wooden cane. Her gray hair was carefully tied in a bun, and her modest floral dress exuded a faint aroma of lavender. To any casual observer, she was just another elderly woman trying to resolve some bureaucratic matter. The waiting room was crowded. Impatient people gathered, filling out forms and waiting to be called. Beatrice sat in an empty chair, carefully placing her purse on her lap. Her eyes, framed by thick-rimmed glasses, carefully observed every detail around her. Officer Kelly Dawson was on duty at the service counter, a white woman in her 40s, with blonde hair tied in a severe ponytail. Her shiny badge reflected the fluorescent light as she typed on the computer, occasionally looking up impatiently at the growing line. When it was finally Beatrice's turn, the elderly woman stood up with difficulty and approached the counter. "How can I help you?" asked Kelly, without looking up from the screen. "Good afternoon, officer." Beatrice's voice was soft, but clear. "I'm here to report suspicious activity in my neighborhood. I've been observing strange movements in the house next to mine." Kelly finally looked at the lady in front of her and barely managed to disguise a sigh of boredom. "Fill out this form," she said, pushing a clipboard toward Beatrice. "And be specific about what you saw. We don't accept reports based on feelings or intuitions." Beatrice accepted the form with slightly trembling hands and returned to her seat. As she filled out the document, she could feel Kelly's gaze upon her. The officer whispered something to a colleague, and both let out muffled giggles. "Another paranoid old lady," Kelly commented loudly enough for several people present to hear. "Probably just saw the neighbor receiving a food delivery and already thinks he's a drug dealer." Some laughter echoed through the room. Beatrice maintained her serene expression, as if she hadn't heard anything. Her fingers, marked by time, continued to write with surprisingly elegant handwriting. The young woman sitting next to her placed a comforting hand on her arm. "Don't mind them, ma'am." Beatrice smiled gently. "Don't worry, dear. It's not the first time." When Beatrice returned to the counter to submit the completed form, Kelly barely looked at the document before placing it in a pile. "Someone will contact you if necessary," she said disinterestedly. "It's urgent," insisted Beatrice. "There are children in that house. I have reason to believe they are in danger." Kelly rolled her eyes, a gesture she didn't try to hide. "Mrs. Johnson, we receive dozens of urgent reports every day. The police don't have resources to investigate every shadow that scares an elderly person." "They're not shadows," Beatrice replied firmly. "They are people coming and going at all hours, carrying suitcases. The windows are always covered, and I hear children crying at night." "Look," said Kelly, leaning over the counter, "why don't you go home, take your medicine, and watch some TV show? Leave police work to the professionals." An awkward silence took over the room. Beatrice adjusted her glasses, her gaze now penetrating. "I understand. Thank you for your time, officer." As she headed for the exit, Beatrice stumbled slightly, dropping her purse. The contents spilled across the floor: an embroidered handkerchief, a small prayer book, an old cell phone, a pill container, and a small agenda. Kelly watched with disdain while a young officer, Ryan Bennett, rushed to help the elderly woman. "Allow me, ma'am," he said, collecting Beatrice's belongings. "Thank you very much, young man," she responded with gratitude. When handing the agenda to Beatrice, Ryan briefly noticed a notation with a code that would seem familiar to any security professional. His gaze met Beatrice's for a moment, and something silent was communicated. The elderly woman simply smiled, put away the agenda, and continued on her way out of the police station. "You're very kind, Ryan," Kelly commented sarcastically when he returned. "But we don't have time to play Good Samaritans with every confused old lady who shows up here." Ryan merely shrugged, a slight discomfort visible in his expression. 3 days later, Beatrice returned to the police station. This time her walk seemed even slower, more fragile. The dark circles under her eyes suggested sleepless nights. Kelly couldn't contain a groan of frustration when she saw her. "Don't tell me you saw more suspicious activities," she said scornfully before Beatrice even reached the counter. "Actually," Beatrice calmly replied, "I came to bring this." She took a simple envelope from her purse and handed it to Kelly. "What is this?" asked Kelly, reluctant to touch the envelope. "Photographs," explained Beatrice, "taken from my bedroom window. I thought they might help with the investigation." Kelly opened the envelope with evident irritation and quickly examined the photos. They were grainy, shaky images showing indistinct figures entering a house. "Mrs. Johnson," said Kelly, pushing the photos back, "photographing your neighbors can be considered an invasion of privacy. These images don't prove absolutely anything. Frankly, I'm beginning to worry about your behavior." The room was more crowded than the day before, and several curious glances turned to the scene. Beatrice felt the weight of embarrassment, but remained unshaken. "I believe the protection of innocent children is a police priority," she said. "Of course it is," Kelly replied condescendingly. "But we need real evidence, not conspiracy theories from a—" She hesitated briefly before continuing. "Elderly lady who clearly has too much free time." Ryan, who was organizing some files near the counter, tried to intervene. "Kelly, Maybe we should, what?" interrupted Kelly. "Waste precious department resources because an old black lady is bored and making up stories. Do you know how many real cases we have pending?" The silence that followed was deafening. Some people in the room looked away, embarrassed. Others watched with morbid interest. Kelly, apparently satisfied with the effect of her words, crossed her arms. "Look, Mrs. Johnson, I appreciate your civic vigilance. But the next time you come here, bring something concrete or don't come back. Are we clear?" Beatrice adjusted her glasses with dignity. "Perfectly clear, Officer Dawson." As she turned to leave, Kelly added, "Loud enough for everyone to hear, and maybe find a hobby. Crochet is great for ladies your age." Muffled laughter echoed through the room. Beatrice's face remained impassive as she walked away, leaning on her cane. Only Ryan noticed the determined gleam in the elderly woman's eyes, so different from the humiliation she should have been feeling. That night, in her small apartment, Beatrice sat at the kitchen table. The soft light from a lamp illuminated her features as she took a different phone from her purse. A modern, high-tech model, very distinct from the antique device she carried in public. She dialed a number and waited only one ring before it was answered. "Miss Johnson," she said, her voice now firm and professional, without any tremor. "We need to accelerate. The situation is worse than we thought. I've confirmed at least 5 children at location Alpha, and there are signs of imminent transport." She listened attentively to the response on the other end. "Yes, I understand the protocols," she continued, "but we're dealing with a possible case of international child trafficking, and there's another problem: local corruption. Officer Kelly Dawson is deliberately ignoring evidence. We need to check her connections." After a few more minutes of conversation, Beatrice hung up. She opened her laptop and typed a complex password, accessing a secure system. Her fingers, now agile and precise, moved quickly across the keyboard as she compiled reports and analyzed data. The fragile lady who could barely fill out a form had disappeared. In her place was Beatrice Johnson, FBI special agent with 30 years of experience in undercover operations, specializing in human trafficking and police corruption. The next morning, Ryan Bennett was leaving the police station after his shift when he spotted Beatrice sitting on a bench in the nearby park. Hesitantly, he approached her. "Mrs. Johnson?" he called politely. Beatrice smiled upon seeing him. "Officer Bennett, what a pleasant surprise." Ryan sat next to her, visibly uncomfortable. "I'd like to apologize for my colleague's behavior yesterday. It was inappropriate." "There's no need to apologize for the actions of others," Beatrice replied gently. After a moment of silence, Ryan spoke. "Those notes in your agenda, that was a federal protocol code, wasn't it?" Beatrice's smile didn't change, but her eyes became more alert. "An observant young man. That's rare these days." "My father was an agent," explained Ryan. "I recognized the format." "Mrs. Johnson, who are you really?" "Someone who needs your help, Officer Bennett," replied Beatrice, her tone now firmer. "Or should I say, someone who is offering you a chance to make the real difference that led you to join the police." Ryan looked around, making sure they were alone before leaning in closer. "What do you know about Officer Dawson?" Over the next 2 weeks, Ryan became Beatrice's eyes and ears inside the police station. Subtly, he collected information about Kelly Dawson, her schedules, contacts, unusual behaviors. What he discovered was disturbing. Kelly regularly filed reports related to certain addresses without investigation. She had frequent contacts with a lawyer known for defending high-level criminals. And, more alarmingly, her extravagant lifestyle didn't match her police officer's salary. Meanwhile, Beatrice continued her theater of persistent and slightly confused elderly lady. She returned to the police station 2 more times with new evidence, always being humiliated and dismissed by Kelly, whose disdain seemed to grow with each encounter. "She's getting impatient," reported Ryan during a brief meeting in a coffee shop. "I heard her on the phone saying that the nosy old lady needs to be contained. I think she's getting nervous." Beatrice nodded gravely. "The operation is scheduled for tomorrow night. The children will be transported, and our team will be ready. But we need Kelly present at the location." "How will we do that?" Beatrice smiled, adjusting her glasses. "I'll do what I do best, be a nosy old lady." The following afternoon, Beatrice called Kelly directly at the police station. Ryan had provided her direct desk number, Officer Dawson. Kelly's voice sounded irritated as she answered. "Officer, it's Beatrice Johnson," she said, her voice purposely trembling and excited. "I'm seeing them right now. They're putting the children in a van." Kelly cursed softly. "Mrs. Johnson, we've already discussed this." "I have proof this time," interrupted Beatrice. "I'm recording everything. I'll send it to all TV channels if the police don't come immediately." There was a brief silence before Kelly responded, her tone now falsely patient. "Don't move. I'm coming there personally to resolve this situation once and for all." Exactly as Beatrice expected. Night was falling when Kelly parked her private car a few blocks from Beatrice's house. She walked quickly along the sidewalk, muttering irritably about elderly women who don't know how to stay in their place. Beatrice's small garden was carefully maintained, with colorful flowers lined up along the path to the door. Kelly rang the doorbell impatiently. The door opened slowly, revealing Beatrice looking even more fragile than usual. "Oh, Officer Dawson, I'm so glad you came," she said, gesturing for Kelly to enter. "They're in the back, loading the van at this very moment." Kelly entered, following Beatrice through the simply decorated living room with family photographs and antique furniture. The house smelled of freshly baked cookies and lavender. "Show me this evidence at once," demanded Kelly, barely containing her irritation. Beatrice led her to the kitchen, where a window offered a view of the neighboring yard. "See for yourself." Kelly approached the window and looked out. There was indeed a van parked in the neighboring yard, with men loading what appeared to be large suitcases. "So what?" asked Kelly, although her tone had subtly changed. "People have the right to load things into vehicles, Mrs. Johnson." "Yes," agreed Beatrice calmly, "but normally these things don't cry." As if on cue, the muffled sound of a child's cry pierced the silence of the night. Kelly's face hardened. "You really don't know when to stop, do you?" She turned to face Beatrice, her hand moving toward her waist. "I'll have to insist that you accompany me to the police station for a formal accusation of false testimony and interference in a police investigation." That's when Beatrice straightened up. Her shoulders, previously curved, became erect. Her gaze, previously soft, became sharp as a blade. And when she spoke, her voice had no tremor. "Officer Kelly Dawson, you are under federal investigation for corruption, obstruction of justice, and complicity in human trafficking." Kelly laughed, a forced and incredulous sound. "What are you talking about, crazy old lady? You have no authority whatsoever." Beatrice removed her glasses and looked directly at Kelly. "Special Agent Beatrice Johnson, FBI, Crimes Against Children Division." She took a badge from her cardigan pocket. "And you, Officer Dawson, are under arrest." The back door opened, and Ryan entered, accompanied by 3 agents in FBI vests. Kelly turned pale, her gaze alternating between disbelief and fury. "Is this some kind of joke? You?" She pointed at Beatrice, her voice trembling slightly. "An old black woman?" Beatrice smiled serenely. "Precisely why I was chosen for this operation. Who would suspect? Your prejudice, Officer Dawson, not only made you cruel, but also blinded you to the truth right in front of your eyes." Ryan approached with handcuffs. "You have the right to remain silent." Outside, a synchronized operation was underway. FBI agents surrounded the neighboring house, while others intercepted the van trying to leave through the back. In minutes, 7 children between 6 and 14 years old were rescued, and 5 traffickers arrested. In the kitchen, Kelly sat handcuffed, her face a mask of impotent rage. "You don't understand," she hissed at Beatrice. "There are powerful people involved. This won't end here." "I know exactly who is involved," replied Beatrice calmly. "Your phone, your bank accounts, and your emails have been monitored for months. The federal judge who signed the warrant was particularly interested in the regular deposits in your Cayman Islands account." Kelly turned even paler. "This operation," continued Beatrice, "is not just about saving these children, although that alone is worth any effort. It's about dismantling an entire trafficking network that has been operating for years, protected by corrupt officers like you in jurisdictions across the country." 3 months later, Beatrice was preparing to leave Baltimore. Her mission was complete. The trafficking network had been dismantled, with more than 40 arrests in 6 different states. Kelly Dawson faced multiple federal and state charges, with no possibility of a deal. The rescued children were safe, receiving treatment and support, some already reunited with their families. On her last day, Beatrice received an unexpected visit. Ryan Bennett appeared at her door, no longer wearing a uniform. "I heard you're leaving," he said, accepting the tea Beatrice offered. "Another city, another mission," she confirmed with a smile. "And you? I heard you refused the promotion." Ryan nodded, looking at his cup. "After everything that happened, I realized I need to follow another path. I accepted a position in the FBI training program. I hope to make a real difference." Beatrice smiled, genuinely pleased. "You already have." Before leaving, Ryan hesitated at the door. "May I ask something personal? Why continue doing this after so many years?" Most agents of your generation would already be retired. Beatrice looked out the window at the garden where neighborhood children played freely, because when I was those children's age, no one came to rescue me. And because even after 50 years in the Bureau, there are still people who look at me and see only a harmless old black woman. She turned her gaze back to Ryan, her eyes shining with wisdom and determination. As long as that continues to be true, I intend to use that prejudice to my advantage to make this world a more just place. Ryan nodded in understanding and respect. The world needs more people like you, Agent Johnson. The world needs people who see beyond appearances, Agent Bennett, Beatrice gently corrected. That's the true lesson, and I hope you carry it with you. As she watched Ryan leave, Beatrice thought about all the identities she had assumed over the years, all the masks she had worn. Ironically, it was while portraying exactly who she was, an elderly black woman, that she found her most effective disguise, a reminder of how society often made invisible precisely those who should be most respected. With a sigh of satisfaction for a job completed, Beatrice began to pack her bags. Somewhere, another city was waiting. Another mask would be worn, and more justice would be done. Because, as long as there were people willing to judge by appearances, Beatrice Johnson would be there to teach them about the high price of that mistake. If you've come this far and this story has touched your heart, I invite you to keep this faith alive with us by subscribing to the channel and activating the notification bell so you don't miss any stories that touch the soul. And if this story has moved you, give it a like so we can continue sharing more stories like this one, made with all our hearts. Until next time.